Okay, this is Laney Turner Cube for 3+2 machining. We're using Mastercam 2023, and the first thing I'll do is go get my model. Now that I have my model, go ahead and bring in a machine. So up here at the top, machine, mill. And you can use default, that's fine for now. Okay. If I do a right click top, plane's not really where I want it, which is okay because we're going to be making a plane for each of these faces. So we usually start with the circle on top. So I'm going to orient that. Then I'm going to come over to my planes tab. Create a new plane, so I'm going to go to the green plus, little drop down next to it, and go from solid face. I can click here or I can click here, doesn't matter. Either way it's going to put it in the center. I can click the arrows to move that plane to different orientations before I lock it in. Doesn't really matter. Hit the green check. I can give it a name. Call it A0, C0. Green check. Then over here, remember we need the WCS, the construction plane, and the tool plane to be on this so that any toolpath we create will be associated to that plane / coordinate system. So I can click here in those columns, or I could hit the equal sign. Okay. So if I click on the Files tab, this is where I can go and change the machine later on, and my post if I need to. If I hover over here on the left, you can see the options. There's a couple new options here. So you still have your stock setup and your tool page that we're used to, but then this master model and work holding and simulation is different. So master model is just asking us, wants us to pick our part model. So choose the mouse pointer, click on both solid pieces, and selection. Alright, back over here to stock setup. So I want to choose this bounding box here. That'll get you started. It's a quick way to get the overall sort of dimensions of the part. So it's an 1.5 inch cube all the way around. You can see that right here. Now, our stock material is actually 1 3/4 inches. So I can click in the box, change the number, and it'll expand. Alright, so 1 3/4 all the way around. And green check that. Okay. So this is the coordinates, right? Like we used to have on the old way. So it's still there. Again, it just looks different. So, alright. Next is work holding. We don't have any of that right now. We'll look at that later. Next will be tools. So we want to choose down here at the bottom, assign tool numbers sequentially. And then simulation settings are in here. So we're not going to mess with any of that right now either. Okay, so green check. Alright, so now you don't see the outline or anything of the stock. Right, so if you come over here to toolpaths, then you can choose stock display, and you can see it as a shaded model if you want to. It's pretty convenient to have it there. Alright, so first toolpath, we're going to face. Alright, we got to face off the top. So toolpaths, face. If I choose the wireframe, the message tells me it's okay to use the defined stock, so I don't actually have to choose the geometry. I can just hit the green check. But remember, that's only because I set up stock. If you don't set up stock, then you have to choose geometry. Alright, and then my tool, select library tool. Now I'll just go with the 2.5 inch face mill. I don't have a 2 inch, but I'll change it. Double click. Alright, 2 inch face mill. Alright, speeds and feed information is over here. Those are just sort of some default values that I have. Let's see. Cut parameters. So our face mill is bigger than the part, so we're just going to do one pass. So under cutting method, we'll choose one pass. We don't need any depth cuts. Linking parameters look like that. Everything absolute. Planes, right, should be the A0C0. Coolant is on. Green check. Next, we'll go ahead and contour the outer perimeter. So go with the contour toolpath. Then selecting our geometry. So I want loop on my solid selection. So if you see this page, you're going to switch over here to solid selection and use loop. And remember, where you click will determine the direction. Right, so we want to climb mill, so we want to make sure that the arrow is pointing counterclockwise direction for an outside cut. Okay, green check. My tool is going to be a 1/2 inch end mill. Speed and feed information. Cut parameter is going to be wear compensation. 2D contour. And I will go ahead and give it a 10,000 external corner break radius. Don't need depth cuts. Lead in, lead out. Should look like that. Multi-passes. So our part is 1.5 inch cube. Stock is 1 3/4 inch. So that means we have 125 thousandths on the walls. So I'll go with 2 roughing passes at 50 thousandths, a finish at 25, and 1 spring pass. I'm not going to do any depth cuts. Alright, so for my linking parameters, my depth is going to be minus 1.5. And my coolant is on. Alright, 3 little squiggly lines will show and hide the tool path, so I'm going to hide that right now. Turn off my stock shading. Alright, so we got the outside profile, so now we're going to go ahead and do the actual shape feature. So for that we'll do another contour. Contour. Okay, so for this inside, right now, the gap between the inner and outer circle is 1/4 inch, so the end mill is going to climb mill and conventional mill, so we can go back and clean it up afterwards, but for now we just want to make sure that we're going counterclockwise if you choose the outer circle. That way with our left compensation it's going to compensate to the correct side. So green check. For my tool, select library tool, going to get a 1/4 inch end mill this time. So I'm going to need to change this a little bit. My plunge rate, I usually have it like 40 inches a minute because I'm not normally plunging into the material. It's just a feed rate that takes you from the rapid plane, from the feed plane to your Z depth. So on an outside contour or something, you're just going through air, so no need to go slow. But right now we actually are plunging into material, so I'm going to change that to about 5 inches a minute. Alright, and then for cut parameters, I'm going to switch it, the compensation type, to computer, because I don't have room for a lead in, lead out, so I don't want to try to do wear compensation. I'm also not really concerned about the size of the cut in this case. Contour type is 2D. And I'm going to activate depth cuts. So activate depth cuts. I'm going to do 100,000ths per step. And then for my lead in, lead out, I need to check the box up here so that it does not create a lead in, lead out. Also multi-passes, I'm going to take that out as well. Linking parameters. So my top of stock is now 0 because I faced off the extra material. And my depth, I'm going to go ahead and click on the depth button. And I'm going to come in here to the model, and I'm going to select somewhere on this, either the bottom of the circle or this square. Alright, so 4875. Alright, and then see, planes coolant is on, so that's good right there. So you can see that. Alright, so if I want the walls here to look good, I want to come back and do a finish pass. So what we're going to do is create another contour, and then this time we're going to select again the same outside circle, but then we're also going to select the inside circle. Alright, so you got to make sure that the inside circle is pointed clockwise, the outside is pointed counterclockwise. Alright, so now if you click at it and it's pointing the wrong way, you can hit the reverse right here. Over here, reverse. Okay, so make sure you got it pointed the right way. And then green check. And our tool is going to be the same. Cut parameters, same, except that stock to leave on walls, I'm going to put a negative 0.001. So you can see the red and black over here. That means I'm cutting into the wall extra, as opposed to staying away from the wall. If I put a positive number, okay, I don't need depth cuts this time, and everything else here is going to stay the same. The linking parameter is going to be the same depth, so minus 0.4875. Top of stock is 0. Alright, my coolant should still be on. Okay, just like that. If I zoom in, you can see that right click top, zoom in. See, there's 3 passes, the one in the middle, the one cheated to the outside, and the one cheated to the inside. Okay, so after that, then we're going to want to deburr the edges. So again, that's another contour toolpath. So I want to choose the same 2 edges in the same orientation that I just had in the last toolpath. So I can do that without having to go over here to the graphics screen by just clicking this button here that says last. So I click that and you see they pop up on the screen here. Okay, and then I also want the outside rectangle. Okay, so I'll go ahead and click on that. Okay, and then green check. And then I'm going to go for my tool, select library tool. I'm going to hit my filter. I'm going to, over here in the upper right, is chamfer mills. So I want to go with a 1/4 inch chamfer mill. Speed and feed information here. Alright, and then so for cut parameters, We're going to leave it as computer compensation. For contour type, we're going to move it over to 2D chamfer. Alright, we want a 10 thousandths chamfer, and we want to offset 50 thousandths. Go ahead and remove this. Stock to leave on walls. I'll leave my external corner break radius so that the chamfer mill will follow the same path that the end mill did. Alright, no depth cuts. Lead in, lead out. Go ahead and activate the lead in, lead out, and we're just going to use a small 5% lead in, lead out. And then linking parameters. Again, since we use the 2D chamfer routine, our depth should be at the Z depth of the surface. So this, whatever surface we're putting the chamfer on, and that is going to be Z0 in this case. So that doesn't change. Top of stock won't matter, so we don't have to go and change that every time. It only matters if you're doing depth cuts. Okay, so coolant is on and green check. Okay. So let's go ahead and save real quick. And then I'll go ahead and highlight all the operations, and I'll click on the verify. Press play. Alright, there we go. So there's my first operation. So now at this point, you have to know what machine that you're gonna be running this on, so you know which way we're gonna rotate when we move to the next face. So for now, we will program it for the TRTs, and then later on I'll show you how we can switch it over to the UMC. So with the TRT, if we are the spindle looking down on the part, right, this is our view. So then when the TRT rotates 90 degrees, it's going to rotate the part, and it's going to show us this face right here. Okay, so that's going to be our A90 and C0. Alright, so we're going to need a plane for that. So go to planes, hit the drop down from solid face. Alright, now I need the X to point the same direction. So I need the X pointing over to the right. So it's in the same direction as my A0, C0, X. So I'll hit the arrows. So now my X is pointing to the right. Green check. And I'll call this one A90 C0. Green check. And then again, I need to make this plane active. So I will highlight the plane and hit the equal sign. And then you see the WCS, the C and the T come down. And now when I create a toolpath, it'll be using that plane. Alright. So, can do is going to call this toolpath group right here. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to call that op1 A0C0. And then I'll create a new toolpath group for the next operation. So if I click on machine group and then I do a right click, I come down to groups, new toolpath group. Do not select a new machine group. That's not what you want. You want a new toolpath group. So click like that, and then you can go ahead and rename it. We'll call this op2 A90 C0. Alright. Now rather than go ahead and go through all the steps of recreating those toolpaths, I can actually just copy them down, right? So I just want the last three, this one, and this one. So I hold Control and click on each one, and then I'll do a right click and drag it down here, release the right click, and then this little window pops up and I'll click copy after. Alright, drag my little arrow down. Okay, so now I have the toolpaths, and I need to, 1, update the geometry, and 2, update the planes. So while they're still all selected, I can change the planes all together. If I do a right click, edit selected operations, and edit common parameters, and this box pops up, and then any of these parameters that they share, you can change them globally for all those operations that you selected. So I want to click on the planes tab right there, and then A90C0. Right, since I set that as the current plane, it automatically assumes that I want to change the planes for those toolpaths to the one that's current. Okay, so that's great. That's what I want. If it didn't do that, then I would just click right here on this, and then I could select whatever plane I wanted to change it to, and then I could hit these arrows here to get them all to match. So green check that, and then green check again, and so now they all went dirty, right? You see the red X, they're all dirty. It says, hey, you changed it, we need to regenerate. So but before we regenerate, we can go ahead and update our geometry, right? So remember, our first contour is going to be the outside shape. Our second toolpath is going to be outside and inside, and then the third one is going to be the chamfer, so outside and inside again. So I'll go ahead and expand all of these, and then for the first toolpath, I'll go ahead and click on where it says geometry, and that's going to bring up the chain manager. So I'll do a right click, and I'm going to go rechain all. Okay, so again, keeping my loop, and then I'm going to go ahead and choose the outside, making sure that the pre-highlight, right, shows me that outside contour. So I click on that. Again, I want it in the counterclockwise direction. So green check there, green check there. Now for the second toolpath, do a right click, rechain all. Again, click the same one, that one, and then I'm going to go ahead and click the inside one, making sure that that arrow points clockwise, just like that. And then green check, green check, and then for my third toolpath, it's going to be the same geometry as the second toolpath. So what I can do is I can right click on the geometry and drag it to this toolpath's geometry, release, and then I can choose replace. And then I can come up here and click on regenerate all dirty operations. And then just like that. And again, I'll hit the save button real quick at the top. And then I'll click on machine group 1, which is going to highlight all the toolpaths. And then I'll click verify. Okay, there we go. 2 faces done. Alright, so now we started here and then we rotated 90 degrees like this in the A axis. And so now we're going to start spinning the part this way to get the other 3 faces. So I'm going to spin it here, over here to the diamond. Drag my little red insert arrow here. So again, another new plane. So planes tab, from solid face. Okay. Again, I need my X pointing to the right, just like that. So I'm going to call this one A90 C90. Set it current. Come back to my toolpaths. Again, I'll make a new toolpath group. So right click on machine group, go to groups, new toolpath group, op3, A90 C90. Just like before, I'm going to copy these toolpaths down, copy after, then I'll do another right click, edit selected operations, edit common parameters, on planes, A90 C90, green check, and then I'll go ahead and update my geometry. So first one, rechain all. So right click in the white space, rechain all, loop. Okay, again, counterclockwise for the outer, clockwise for the inner. So the first toolpath is just the outer. Check. Second toolpath, right click, rechain all. It's the outside and the inside. Green check, and then right click and hold that right mouse button down, drag it over here, release, and then replace, left click, and then regenerate all dirty operations. Okay. Okay, 2 more to go. So again, come up here to machine group 1, click on it, and then right click, groups, new toolpath group, op4, A90 C180. Plane. So now we're going to be rotating again this way to the square side. planes from solid face. X points to the right. Green check. A90. C180. Green check. Equal sign. Back to my toolpaths. Click on 9, 10, 11, holding the control key. Alright, make sure you get the check mark, and then right click and hold the right mouse button down and drag. So then release and copy after. Right click again, edit selected operations, edit common parameters, planes right here. Okay, A90 C180, green check, green check. Okay, geometry, right click, rechain all. Check, green check. Second toolpath, geometry, rechain all. 1, 2. Check, green check. Hold the right mouse button down, drag it, release, replace. Regenerate all dirty operations. Okay. One more to go. Might hit a save real quick. Okay. New toolpath. Op5, A90, C270. And rotate the part. Get a new plane. From solid face. X points to the right. Green check. A90 C270. Green check. Equal sign. Copy after. Right click. Edit selected. Edit common parameters. Planes right here. A90 C270. Check. Geometry. Right click, rechain all. Second toolpath, rechain all. There. There. Green check, green check. Copy that geometry down, replace. Regenerate all. There we go. Save it again. Click on Machine Group 1 to highlight all the toolpaths. Verify. Okay, so there we go. We got all 5 shapes. Close that out. So now what I would probably do for ease of setup is I have all these planes in the center. So to make it a little bit easier, I might just put it on the front in case I had to use an edge finder. That way I don't have to do math, you know. So if I go to the planes, right, so right now I'm on A90C270 and it's right there. So what I can do to move it, it's very easy. I just hit this little mouse pointer and then I come and you see the little midpoint snaps to the midpoint. So I click right there. Then I go to my next plane, make it active, hit the mouse pointer, snap to the center point of that edge. Yes. Alright, back here one more, A90C90. Activate it. Mouse pointer. Midpoint. Click. A90C0. Mouse pointer. Right there. And then A0C0 stays the same. Alright, so if I go back to my toolpaths, you see these are all dirty now because I moved the plane. So now they all have to be regenerated. So they're all highlighted, so I'll go ahead and click regenerate all dirty operations. And then I'll save it. Verify one more time. Okay, so now our planes are all set. If I go to the planes tab and I look at all my planes, we can see they're all set to automatic, right? So that means if I post out all these operations, then each time it sees a new plane, it's going to give that a new work offset. So my first operation will post out to G54, op 2 will be G55, 56, 57, 58. Okay, so if I do that, click G1, green check. Alright, I'll call it Turner Cube 3 plus 2. Enter. So if I look, my first work offset is G54 right there. So if I go to well, it looks like Mastercam's making a liar out of me, because that should have posted different work offsets. So I don't know if that's a 2023 thing or what, so that's okay. So we'll close this out. We can just go ahead and force it. We'll go back to our planes. And so for A0C0, so if I make that active, and if I come here and I click manual, and then I change that -1 to a 0, press enter. So type in 0, press enter, then the little warning will pop up and you'll say yes. So you can either click it or you can just hit enter again. Okay, so same thing here. Go to the next one. Alright, and then change it to manual. Now I'm going to change that -1 . Hold on, wait a minute. This will be number 1. Yes. Alright, go to the next one. You can see the numbers are popping up over here on the right. So that's good. So there's that. Manual. This one's going to be number 2. Yes. So on down the line. Click manual. 3. Yes. Manual. 4. Yes. Alright, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 0 will, if you force a plane to 0, it'll post out to G54. 1 is G55, G56, 57, 58. I'm not sure why they did it like that, but that's the way it works. So now we come back to our toolpaths. We'll go ahead and regenerate those. So all the operations are selected, so I hit regenerate all the selected operations, and then I'll go ahead and post it again. Green check. Hopefully Mastercam doesn't make a liar out of me twice. So 2, 3, 4, and then there's our G55 right there. So that's the second time that tool 3 comes up, right? So G55, G55, G56, 56, 57, 57, 58, 58. Back to the top. Okay, so that's what we want. We're going to go ahead and shorten up these comments here. As we know, the Haas doesn't like those long comments, so we shorten them up and then save it, close it out. One last, let's see, go back to this plane here, top, alright, and save. Alright, so there is our 3+2. Each face has its own work offset that we'll have to set up in the machine. And then, like I said, in the next video we will talk about how to change it over to be used on the UMC. And then further on down the line we'll do the center of rotation and so forth. So, hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you soon.